know what's going on with Dallas. What do you got your eye on when this team has the ball?
Yeah, when they have the ball, they're going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I mean, the Washington Commanders defense, whether it's running the ball against them or throwing the ball, they are susceptible to it all. You've got one of the best offenses in the NFL, led by one of the best quarterbacks this season in Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones and the Cowboys have already come out to say, yeah, Dak is playing down to the end. We want to win on Christmas Day. So there is no fear or concern about the Cowboys maybe not playing their guys down the stretch. No, they're all playing. They've got 2,000-yard receivers right now with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott playing really good football. The offensive front is banged up. The offensive line for Dallas, they had to put the left guard, Tyler Smith, at left tackle. They got Cooper Beebe back, still some issues on the right side. And the running game with Javonte Williams didn't quite look 100% last week, in my opinion. But when they have the ball, Matt, I think they should be able to do whatever they want with the Washington Commanders. It feels like a really, really good spot for George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. And as we're recording this today on Tuesday, Ryan Flournoy, who caught a touchdown, had another touchdown that was called back due to penalty. He was limited in practice today. So I bring his name up not because you're going to want to start him, but if he's off the field, that means even more opportunity funneling in the direction of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and that's exactly what you want in a matchup that's got a 50.5-point total. That's crazy this late in the season for as banged up as Washington is. I love this for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think especially it's really good if there's no Ryan Flournoy, who has, impressed me this season. We've been talking about that on the show lately. I think that really stands out for a guy like CeeDee Lamb because, their roles sort of overlap a little bit here, where obviously not in terms of target allocation, but where they're running routes from, where they're playing on the field. Flournoy this season has played in the slot on 33.7% of his snaps. CeeDee Lamb has been in the slot on 36.7%. George Pickens just 7.9%. Pickens, it was so funny, even last week going into that Chargers game, there was some talk from the coaches. We're going to move George Pickens around. Like we can't have him have a game that he's been having lately. We got to get him rolling. No, they're never going to do that. He just plays X receiver. He plays in the slot the fewest of any starting receiver in the NFL, does George Pickens. I mean, he is just ISO X. So it's kind of the overlap in terms of role. If we're taking away Flournoy, I think that pushes even more in the direction of CeeDee Lamb because you're putting then at that point, Kevontae Turpin out there. That just is not the same. That's just not the same.
No, and they're not getting a lot from Jake Ferguson of late either. So that tight end position, which was a really fruitful role at one point in time for all of us in fantasy, really hadn't felt that way with Jake Ferguson of late. Not very good after the catch. Some things need to happen with him in that position in the offseason. But if Flournoy is out of this one, and again, Matt, I really don't have a lean. I saw a picture of him from practice today. Huge knee brace on. He was working off to the side with the rehab group. Just another one to monitor. It's not going to impact the decision that you make to play Lamb or George Pickens. They're in your lineup. But if Flournoy is out, maybe you can raise that expectation level a little bit that you have for those pass catchers in Dallas.
Let's talk about the run game here real quick because Javonte Williams probably coming off his first real letdown game in a while. It was unfortunate, obviously, if he ended up getting you bounced from your fantasy football semifinals because he's been one of the best picks that you could have made. But, Ray, I think you have a stat here from the Commanders' defense. I mean, they have just been – we were going to talk about the passing game and where you can beat them. Spoiler alert, it's everywhere. But this is definitely a defense you can also run on as well.
Yeah, you can absolutely run on Washington. They're not good up front. Their linebacking core is not very solid. Again, I'm not looking at Dallas's offensive line as it's anything special, but this Commanders defense, they give it up, Matt. What is this number that we have right here for the Commanders? How much they allow since week 12? Allow 150 yards per game on the ground. Yeah, that's third most in the NFL over the last month plus of the season. This is a great spot for Javonte. I hope that he is healthy. They did not use him a lot versus the Chargers. He took 9 carries in that game. And in one of the receptions, or maybe it was an incomplete pass, was right in the middle of the field. He went down, and you can tell whatever was ailing him, he re-injured it. He got up slow. He was off of the field. This should be a really good spot for him. You're probably just going to have to play and pray, Matt. Play and pray that he's okay and healthy enough to score you some points, because the matchup is good, but he is clearly less than 100% right now.
In the passing game, any way you want it, you can get it against this Commanders defense. That's the way it's been. And I actually do think that the game against the Eagles last week on Saturday was a perfect example of this. You pretty much were happy with anybody that you started in that game. Obviously Jalen Hurts throws several touchdowns. He throws one at Dallas Goedert. He throws one at Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown had a pretty big game in terms of the usage in the first half. He was getting a bunch of targets. The run game, obviously Saquon Barkley had a big night. And I feel like that we could get that exact same sort of outing here with the Dallas Cowboys, since this is over the course of the entire season. They allow the most points per dropback in single high, which would typically point you towards a George Pickens game, right? That's when we've seen Pickens be able to go off. And even last week when he goes against a Chargers defense that is more zone coverage heavy, he still sees a lot of isolated opportunities in that game. I don't know what the kind of coaching point was there, if it was just, hey, the few ISO opportunities that he got in man coverage, Dak, who's a smart pre-snap quarterback, just going to him every single time. He was able to make those plays there. You'd think that's going to be a George Pickens game. However, Commanders also give those points per drop back in zone coverage as well, which would typically point you to like, that's a CeeDee Lamb type of game. So my question to you, Ray, when you hear both of those notes, and it's CeeDee Lamb, it's George Pickens, they're both projected for around 80 yards receiving if you're looking at their prop bet lines. Which one do you actually think is in position to have the bigger game here? Is it George Pickens or is it CeeDee Lamb? I mean, the answer is both, but if you had to pick one or the other, which one do you think?
I would say CeeDee Lamb. I would say CeeDee Lamb, maybe a little bit more than Pickens. He is the priority. Like their goal, they get George Pickens involved, and it is beneficial for them to do it early. But in my opinion, just watching how they play in the game flow, like there's no doubt CeeDee Lamb is the preferred number one option in the offense. Really gets, and then he does it in a multitude of ways because he can play outside and inside. And then everything we're talking about with Flournoy, I still think if I had to pick one over the other, the answer is both. The answer of both are in great spots. It would be CeeDee Lamb. And you referenced how well the Eagles did last week with Goddard, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith. Like, think about it. This same Washington team is what got J.J. McCarthy sort of getting back on track. He had 3 touchdown passes versus them. I mean, and that's why they're so bad. It's just easy to scheme players open versus this Commanders team. They're in shambles. Dan Quinn they have no clue what to do. They can't get after the quarterback. They don't have secondary to stop anybody. This is just for the Commanders to be as bad as they are and the Cowboys to be in the position they are. And Vegas still says, hey, we think they're going to score about 50 damn points in this matchup. It just lets you know that you're playing all your Cowboys. Like you're playing them. You're hoping they get through. And I do think we will get one or maybe both of these guys with monster games between Lamb and Pickens.
I think that we'll see Lamb catch a lot of passes and we'll see big plays from George Pickens. Just typically that's how it would go, right? So if you're looking for props, It's like longest reception for George Pickens, I think is live. Whereas if you're just looking for overall catches, I think CeeDee Lamb is live there as well. So just looking at some of those numbers on BetMGM, CeeDee Lamb over under is 5.5 catches. The over is minus 145. So you may want to try to have to juice that bad boy up or put it in a parlay or something like that. If you're looking at the longest reception, that is where I think George Pickens could really come into play there. It just, to me, like, we're going to get opportunities for George Pickens to line up in single high coverage, and he's going to have one of those big plays. I just totally see that happening.
Yeah.
Longest reception for George Pickens is 26.5 yards. I would take the over on George Pickens to have at least one of those type of big plays. Just last note on this Cowboys passing game, unless you've got anything else. You mentioned Jake Ferguson, lack of yards after the catch for him. 24 tight ends this year have 50 or more targets. 5 of them have fewer than 4 yards after catch per reception. 2 of them are rookies, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm, not exactly big time athletes. 2 of them are super old, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, and then the other is Jake
Oh
Ferguson.
boy,
So
Jake Ferguson. Yeah,
three.
yeah.
3.8 yards after catch per reception. Not getting a lot there. It was so funny when George Pickens was having that big moment, obviously at the beginning of the season, when CeeDee Lamb was hurt. What's going to happen to George Pickens when CeeDee Lamb gets back? Nothing. Jake Ferguson's just going to get completely shelved. And I say that as somebody that had Jake Ferguson on a fantasy team at that point and knew that was coming. And still, it's been pretty tough if you have him on a roster.
Yeah, 100%, man.
All right, let's talk about the Commanders here because you mentioned this game still has a big total. And if you look at the implied point total, right, like Dallas is up there at 28, 29 points in this one. The Commanders are still projected for over 20 points here, according to BetMGM. So who's scoring? Like, who is going to be doing it? Because if we're looking at who's starting at quarterback, Marcus Mariota did not practice for a second straight day today. It's trending towards, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, veteran Josh Johnson making his first start of the season as of now. The team also added Jeff Driscoll. There's been some Sam Hartman questions about is he going to get a start down the stretch? What a mess. I mean, so, okay, who's going to be scoring these 21 points, Ray?
I'm trying to figure this out too. And maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm watching the game. And Josh Johnson, he goes in and he throws a pass. And I believe they said it was like the first time he threw a pass in an NFL game in years. I'm talking, he's damn near like Phillip Rivers, but he's been in the NFL the entire time. I'm almost positive that was a stat that I heard. And I was like, wow. And then the pass he threw, I believe it was almost intercepted. And that's maybe why he didn't throw the ball. I don't know who's scoring. I don't know who's scoring all the points. Because the one thing that this Dallas defense is quite good at, it's stopping the run. It's even versus the Chargers. Hampton had a big game, but overall, this is a very solid rushing unit. Since week 12, they are top 10. So over the last month plus, about 104 yards per game. Quinn Williams was out last week. You see right here, neck. He's been limited in practice this week. After some feeling good, Quinn Williams, Pro Bowl selected there. Like, this defense is a matchup in which Marcus Mariota, absolutely Jaden Daniels, hell, maybe even me or you, Matt Harmon, should be able to score some points against this Dallas defense. But honestly, the real question is who is playing quarterback? If it's Josh Johnson, as bad as it is, that would be a fireable offense to get lit up by Josh Johnson or Sam Hartman or whoever else you said, Jeff Driscoll potentially getting reps. This is one where I have a hard time seeing where the offense from Washington is going to come from.
Yeah, Josh Johnson threw 9 passes last week for the Commanders. He threw 5 passes combined from 2022 with the San Francisco 49ers and 2024 with the Baltimore Ravens. So, I mean, he at least threw 3 passes last year in a regular season game. Okay. So there is that. But, I mean, yeah, you're right. This would be a fireable offense, and yet I could see it happening with this Cowboys defense. Matt Eberflus right now is essentially doing the slow fade, because there was the whole thing. Well, he's going to go from the sideline to the booth. I mean, next week he's going to be in the van calling plays, like out of the parking lot. And then by week 18, he's just going to take that van and drive off into the distance here because he's obviously not going to be back next season. It's like when you break up with somebody and you're like, I don't want to break up. I'm just going to kind of do a slow fade out of the relationship, slowly fade out of their life. That's what the Cowboys and Matt Eberflus are doing. They're slowly fading him out of the building here. So I actually have some faith that, like, Terry McLaurin can hit a couple of big plays against this secondary. I mean, whenever they line up in man coverage, which is not often, they just get completely fried. Rookie Siobhan Revell maybe is a good player in the long run. He has given up a ton of big plays since he has gotten into the mix here. And he's their perimeter corner. You would expect him and Terry McLaurin to be doing some battle here. So Terry McLaurin, he's a guy who's never going to get a ton of volume consistently on a week-to-week basis. But you'd imagine he's going to be in line for some big plays in this one.
I still don't know who's getting him the ball, but you are absolutely right. He should. And if you look at the Chargers game last week, it was the first time all season long, Justin Herbert did not get sacked. The offensive line didn't get better. They didn't improve magically. Dallas has the second, I think they're tied for the 31st in the NFL in pressure to sack rate. They can't get after the quarterback. That is a big problem. So when you are giving whomever time, ultimately a receiver's going to win, and their secondary is poor. Revel's not good. Diggs came back. He gave up the first touchdown to Lad McConkey. I don't know what he was looking at. Deron Bland is on IR. The safeties are old and slow. You can't get after the quarterback. The linebackers are hurt. The matchup is great. Matt, there should be multiple options from this Commanders team, Deebo Samuel included, who should score you some points in this one. I would feel better if it were Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm not saying I don't play him with Josh Johnson. I would feel better if it was Mariota, but the matchup, again, just like we talked about last week, it's like the perfect storm for any team to get right against because they can't really do anything besides stop the run.
Yeah, man, I agree with you about the Marcus Mariota thing. In that lineup, actually, that I had Justin Herbert that did lose to Ashton Genty because I didn't want to play Herbert. We'll talk about this game later against the Houston Texans. I actually picked Marcus Mariota up as like a preemptive. I'm going to start him in week 17 against the Dallas Cowboys defense. Obviously, didn't have to worry about it anyways, but definitely thinking ahead, it looked like that matchup was going to be so prime for Mariota, who I think has played well. But now, obviously, it doesn't really matter. Since week 14, routes for the Commanders goes 69 for Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel is second. He has 10 catches for 105 yards in this span on 68 routes. Then it's Treylon Burks at 39, Noah Brown at 29, Ben Sinnott at 28. They're completely rotating the tight end position after Zach Ertz's injury. So, yeah, it pretty much, if you're just looking at the passing game, the only guys that are really getting the football right now is Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. So as long as it's concentrated, if for whatever reason you want to be optimistic about either player, that's the thing you have to hope for. And it's obviously in terms of air yards completely different. Terry McLaurin 12 air yards per target, Deebo Samuel 4.1. So you got to hope that when they're in a lot of zone coverage looks, they're going to be peppering Deebo Samuel underneath and then a couple of shot plays to Terry McLaurin and, God help get Josh Johnson out there on his 14th NFL team or whatever it is. He's 39 years old. I mean, he's actually an NFL player older than me. Other than Phillip Rivers, there are some out there. So there you go. That's the Commanders. I'm not optimistic about the run game at all. I think it will have to be the pass game. And I think because this defense is in such rough shape, I actually do have some faith that either Deebo or Terry is going to show up in this matchup. So pretty insane stuff. It's going to be a hell of a way to start your Christmas. If you are mad at your relatives for any reason, you don't like the gift that you got, just park them in front of the TV and have them watch the Commanders. I mean, because what an eyesore that team is right now. So hopefully we get a beautifully bad shootout, but that's all I can say about that game. We are going to take our first quick break. When we come back, we've got two other games with some questionable quarterbacks starting in them. That's the theme of Christmas this year. Questionable quarterbacks starting. We'll get into that right after this. Let's talk about when the Vikings have the ball here. We're going to get a Max Brosmer start. Obviously, Max Brosmer gave us one of, if not the least efficient start from anybody in the NFL when he went to Seattle to play the Seattle Seahawks. However, very different situation here, playing this Lions defense indoors. And especially I think like Brosmer was fine when he got into the mix at the end, at the second half of the Giants game. He complete like 7 of 9 passes here.
Yeah, he was fine.
O'Connell says, yeah, he's fine. O'Connell said that McCarthy's not going to need surgery for the hairline fracture in his hand, which is very small, but he's not expected to go obviously on the short week here. So we're getting a Brosmer start, but against this Lions defense, Ray, it actually might set up pretty well for the Vikings.
What an interesting start for both of these games. Jordan Mason ankle, DNP in practice again on Tuesday. So it looks like it's Aaron Jones. And I don't know who the backup running back would be, Matt. I don't know if you can look that up to see if there's
Xavier
any
Scott
potential
still,
hidden. Okay, Xavier Scott. Well, listen. This Lions defense is dreadful. We've talked about a lot of bad defenses so far in this show. The Cowboys, we talked about the Commanders. This Lions defense, my goodness. Let me just walk you through some of this. One of the worst rushing defenses in the league. They're giving up about 145 on the ground per game. All right. Since week 12, their total defense, that is Detroit. Since week 12, I like looking at how these teams are playing down the stretch, right? Give me a month or so of games. Since week 12, dead last. The only team in the NFL allowing 400 plus yards per game since week 12. But it ain't just like 401, 402.1, 450 damn yards a game allowed by this Lions defense. Matt, I went and looked. I just wanted to see how bad this was over this since week 12 stretch. I went back to the year 2020, 2-0, 2-0. Oh, no. And I looked at each individual season from 2020, just from this week 12 to week 6. Like, how bad is this? No defense since 2020 from this type of sample size is giving up more yards than the Detroit Lions. Not one single defensive season performance as bad as what we're getting now from Detroit. And you want to know who they leapfrog to take the number one spot? You want to know who they leapfrog to take that? Their own damn team. The 2020 Detroit Lions are number 2 in yards allowed during this time span. So when you're looking at this game, they're allowing over 300 passing yards per game. They don't get after the quarterback, even though Aiden Hutchinson is a Pro Bowl. He's the only damn person that can rush the quarterback. Like, this sets up to be a game in which you should feel real good starting Justin Jefferson, starting Aaron Jones, starting Jordan Addison, who can't catch the ball of late. But again, just like I asked you an hour ago, the quarterback, right? How much do you trust Mad Max Brosmer in this one when the defense is literally, since week 12, it's the worst individual defensive season since 2020, what these Lions team are giving up right now?
Obviously, there's still issues on the offensive line. Christian Darisaul's on IR too for the Minnesota Vikings, but I kind of feel okay about this Lions offense going against this Vikings offense going against this Lions defense, man. Like, is this the Justin Jefferson game? Is it? I mean, with all the stats that you laid out there, Justin Jefferson to get over 100 yards in this game is plus 320. When are you ever in your life going to get plus 320
Never.
On Justin Jefferson over 100? Never again. Maybe next week if he doesn't get it here.
Yeah, next week. Next week.
Hell yeah, you should shoot. I mean, maybe next week. But still, I mean, in a spot like this, island game on Christmas, I mean, shoot. I mean, they play the Packers next week. We'll see. Like, this could be the moment here for this offense. I kind of think that there's just a lot of high scoring potential in this one. I realize Brosmer is what he is. Obviously, he was just not equipped to handle Seattle. Undrafted rookie making a start on the road like that against the best defense in the league. But this is a completely opposite spot of that. I'm not saying Brosmer is going to come in here and light it up, but this offense has sort of found a rhythm lately. They've run the ball a little bit better than they did at the start of the season. They've been able to hit more explosive. They've gotten the tight ends more involved. McCarthy has felt settled. So could Brosmer come in here and get the start at home against a favorable defense? I'm not saying it's the craziest thing in the world if they're just functional in this game.
Matt, I said it last week that I felt good about Jefferson versus the Giants, and I'm with you. And to be quite honest with you, I like the fact that we've seen Brosmer a little bit. At least this will not be his first NFL action, right? He got thrown to the Wolves versus Seattle. He got put into the game last week, and he got Jefferson the ball. There was a little connection there, like he knew where to throw the ball to. I think we had a graphic up on the screen that TJ Hawkinson is out. We know Addison hasn't really caught the ball. Jordan Mason not practicing, or Hawkinson wasn't practicing. It might just be get the ball to number 18. Get the ball to 18. I'm not this Lions defense over the last 5 games has been dreadful. So if there were going to be a matchup for Brosmer to come in and just get the ball to Jefferson, I like him this week, Matt. In week 17 for your fantasy championship, I think he can find success. This defense is very, very bad. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they should be able to run the ball and get it to Jefferson.
And I want to give defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard some credit here. You know, obviously he's taken over for Aaron Glenn. I do think at the beginning of the year when they were healthier, he was putting some good stuff out there. I thought that at times this defense looked pretty awesome. The problem is they've just had so many injuries. It's the same thing along the offensive line where they were already kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of coaching change, some personnel changes, and then they had injuries. It's really the same thing on defense here for Detroit. So I do want to I think Kelvin Shepard is one of these guys that I think should be on the radar in terms of good developing young coaches. He was a player not that long ago. He's well regarded. I just want to give him some credit here. But and that's before I say that pretty much even once they've had these injuries, they've just not really changed anything up. They're still doing what they do. They still run a lot of man coverage and a lot of single high. Since week 12, they've played man coverage on 43% of their dropbacks. That is the second most in the NFL in that span, according to Fantasy Points data, only second to the Cleveland Browns. Well, they give up one of the highest points per dropback rates. They still play a ton of single high. They give up the third most points per dropback in single high when they're in that coverage, only behind the Miami Dolphins and of course the Washington Commanders. You can't do anything right. And I say that to say that Justin Jefferson is going to be in some of those looks. It might be only a couple times per game because obviously you want two eyes on Jefferson all the time, but there's going to be moments when he's isolated up. And I can just see the big plays coming here. So I agree with you, Ray. I think for your fantasy football championships, if you somehow made it with Justin Jefferson, I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to have a moment here.
Well, and you see the tweet on the screen. The Lions defense allowing 458.6 over their last 5 games. For context, the Bengals have allowed the most yards per game this season at 402. I think the loss of Brian Branch a few weeks ago was significant. Whoever was playing safety for him last game, I mean, the angles that safety was taking, number 12, not good. You do what you got to do, right? Do what you got. As Matt says, don't let us set the lineups for your fantasy teams. But I mean, 460 yards per game. This is an historically bad stretch by a defense that, sure, injuries, all that stuff, this is what it is, right? They're giving up almost 500 yards of offense per game. Kevin O'Connell, draw it up. Let's go, man. Let's go. Draw it up and get the ball to 18.